Hi guys, welcome back to another video on Next.js. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the new version of Clerk authentication because many people requested me to create another video on the newer version, which is the version 5. Even though I've already created videos on the Clerk authentication, login, sign up, forget password, and I've created videos on how to connect Clerk user with MongoDB database, but that was with the version 4 of Clerk in Next.js 14. But this video is with version 5. There are minor things which are changed, which I'm going to show you, but I'm going to cover each and everything, even for those users who have not learned Clerk in older version as well, who are first time learning Clerk authentication and how we can integrate that in Next.js. So for that reason, I'm going to be starting and explaining each and everything from scratch, building the UI, configuring Clerk, and running the application. So this is the main application which I'm going to show you. This navbar, these are different routes. I can click on login. This is going to be a form. I can click on the sign up. We have this sign in button, sign up button directly over here. All the validations are in place. And we have protected pages as well, like the client page. If I click on client page, this is protected because I'm not logged in. That's why I cannot access this particular page. This is a client side component. I will show you how we can use middlewares to protect any of these routes, whether it's a client component or it's a server component. So I will also show you how we can protect over APIs as well using the Clerk authentication session. For example, I've created an API/API/data. Currently, I'm not logged in. That's why it is showing the message not authenticated. So this is a GET request, the API which I've created in Next.js. So let me log in with one of my Google account. So once I'm logged in, I can go to the home page. I can go to the client page. Now I'm logged in. That's why I'm able to navigate to the client page. And this name is the dynamic, which is coming from the logged in user information. All right. And this is the client side component. We have a profile page as well. This is showing all of this info. This is the username of this logged in user. And we have this profile and the security, and using this we can rename the profile username, update the avatar, update username, add more email addresses. We can change our password from here, and if I click on it, we can see the manage account from here as well, just like the profile page. So profile page is the server component, client page is the client side component. So I will be showing you how we can protect multiple routes using the middlewares or directly within the server component in order to protect our routes. Okay, and let me log out, and if I click on the login, and here if I don't write anything over here, click on the continue. Currently all the validations are in place, and if we have email registered for this particular user and click on continue, we will having an option for forget and reset password as well, which is already configured as well. I'm going to be explaining you each and every configuration option which Clerk dashboard provides in case you want to deploy your application on any hosting server. I will also be showing you. So this is the deployed URL. This is having this app running, which I'm going to show you. And also, most importantly, I'm going to show you how we can connect our Clerk created users with our own database. So I have connected Clerk with my MongoDB database, which is my own database. And this information is being stored whenever I try to create a new user on Clerk by signing up. Then along with adding this user in the Clerk dashboard over here, it is also going to be added in my own database in case if you want to add a relationship with other models and create some large applications. And it is also having the Clerk ID which was used to log in for that particular user, and this ID is for the user for this particular model which is managed by Mongoose. And I'm also going to show you how we can update the metadata in the Clerk and update the user ID, which is the mongoose user ID for this particular user. Okay, so there are so many things, but I will try to explain each and everything from scratch for beginners who are first time learning Clerk as well. So let's create a new Next.js project. I've opened up an empty folder in VS Code, and in the terminal I'm going to write npx create next app at latest space dot, because I don't want to create a new folder for this project. I'll hit enter, And I'm gonna go with the TypeScript, ESLint, Tailwind CSS, no for source directory, app router, yes, no for default alias. So it's installing the dependencies, so let's wait for it. So the project is created. Let me clear the terminal out. So I'm going to install few dependencies for the Clerk. So if we open up this website for the Clerk, we first need to sign up with our email ID. I've already signed up, and when I'm signed in, it will show this dashboard button at the top nav bar. So I'm gonna click on it, and it is going to take me to this page. Initially you will have to create an organization. I already have a default organization with the name personal account, and I have this defaults pre-existing project. So I'm going to click on create project first of all, and I'm going to name my project over here, and I can name it Next.js Clerk Auth v5, and I can select email. It will enable email, and I can go with the Google, and I can go with the GitHub. You can select any of these. So I'm going to click on create application. So it's going to take some time in order to create an application. So we can integrate Clerk in all of these different technologies. So I am selecting this Next.js. So this is the first dependency which I need to install. So I'm going to click on copied, and I'm going to hit enter by pasting it. So it's going to install the dependencies for the Clerk Next.js. And if I open up this package.json, you'll see that it has this dependencies installed with version 5.2.3. Okay. Next, we need to add create .env file, and we need to add these two keys over here. So let's copy this, and I'm going to create a new file .env. Let's paste it over here. Let's go over here, and I need to create middleware.ts file. This file is default in Next.js. It is not related to Clerk, but this is the file where we can do a lot of things like protect over routes and so many other things, so which I'm going to show you in this video. But initially I'm simply going to create this middleware.ts file and copy this code. So if you are using source directory in Next.js, make sure you create the middleware.ts file within source directory. But here I don't have source directory, so I'm going to create the middleware file directly at root. So middleware.ts. So let's paste the code which I have copied. All right. So let's go over here. Now we need to select pages router or app router in Next.js version 13, 14 or 15. We have app directory structure. So I'm going to select over here, and we need to navigate to the layout.tsx file, and we need to wrap our whole application within the Clerk provider. So this is the Clerk provider. First of all, let me copy everything from here, and let's paste at the top. And this is the Clerk provider which I need to copy, and let's wrap everything Clerk provider, cut it, and below HTML. And now I'm going to copy this as well above the children within the body. So let's copy it, and I'm going to paste it over here. All right. So I'm going to run my application now. So npm run dev, and it is going to take me, let me refresh this page. And this is the default configuration that we have to do in order to implement the Clerk authentication. But this is not a customized way. This is the default component which provide us. So we have this sign in button at the top, and this is what we have added over here. This sign in text is coming from this sign in button. I'm not going to use that over here, but this is just for elaboration. So let's click on the sign in. It's going to take me the URL which is provided by Clerk. Later, I will make my own routing structure to show this particular window, or you can say the component. And this UI is default and provided by Clerk. How cool is that? We don't need to build that. And all the validation are automatically done by Clerk. So I'm going to select Google, and I'm going to log in with any of my email ID. Click on the continue. And once I am not signed out, I am signed in, it's going to show me the user button. So here you can see that in the nav bar, it is showing the user button after fetching my Google account. So I can click on that. This is also provided by Clerk. It is showing the default sign out button. It is showing the manage account, and I can click on that. It's going to show me this model with a lot of different customization options. I can add a new email ID. I can connect with my Google account. I can update the profile. I can go to the security. I can reset the password, and I can see the history that this system actually used to log in to this application. So this thing is provided by Clerk, and this is something which is so cool. So now I'm going to modify it. I'm going to create my own routing structure, for example /sign in /sign up, in order to show those sign in sign up models for login and the sign up. So if I go to the Clerk dashboard, it is showing it like this. Now I'm gonna go and open up the Clerk docs, click on the docs, and let's click on the quick guide overview, click on the Next.js, and this is something which we have already followed. We have already created this middleware.ts file, and this is something which we have already done. Okay, so here the next steps are given over here. First of all, we needs to create our custom sign up sign in pages. So I'm going to open up the second page from here. So I'm going to follow this page to implement my custom sign in sign up pages. So let's create these files. So I'm going to copy this folder structure for the sign up. Let's come over here, actually the folder, create this folder, and inside this folder I'm going to add page.tsx file. And just like the sign up, we have to create this sign in folder structure. So inside it, let's create that, and let's create page.tsx file inside it. So inside the sign up, I'm simply going to add this code which is provided by Clerk, and inside the sign in we need to copy this code and add it over here. You can see that these are the pre-built components provided by Clerk. So there are multiple components that Clerk provides for one thing. For example, here we can detect whether user is signed on or not, whether user signed in or not, or logged out or not. There are multiple other ways that Clerk provides, and inside this signed in, signed out, we can put any code as we want, maybe the custom code that we want to write rather than the simple built-in Clerk provided sign in button component, and rather than adding this user button provided by Clerk. So first of all, I'm going to first test that out. So one last thing, we need to copy these URLs and paste it in our env file. Okay, now let's go over here and let's sign out, and let's click on sign in now. And now you can see that the URL is referring to this /sign in rather than the URL provided by the Clerk. So it is successfully configured. Before we can actually design and set the layout, let me go to the page.tsx file and remove everything from the home page. So let me add home page text actually inside the div. Okay, and let's go to the home page, and now you can see that it is showing this home page simply. And I'm going to go global.css, and I'm going to remove everything except the first 3 lines for the tailwind, and I'm going to set the background for the body. So background color would be it can be an RGB, or I would like to set it in a dark mode. Okay, and then I'm going to set the color that can be the white. All right, so the texts are all white and there is a dark gray color on the background. All right, so let's close this up. So in the home page, I want to style it a bit. First of all, I'm going to add the class name, flex, items center, justify center, height full, and let's create another div, and inside it I'm going to add the home page and add a class name to it with the text to Excel. All right, so let's see. You can see that it is on the center. We actually need to set the layout, height and width. So I'm going to remove everything which I have written over here, and I'm going to add a navbar over here, which I yet need to create. But let me set the total width and height of this container for this page. So for that, I'm going to wrap it with the class name. So I'm going to write max width 6xl mx auto. All right, and inside this div I'm going to add another div, and this is going to take the navbar and the children. But before that, let's add flex column and hide screen. Okay, so let's put this children inside this div, and let's see. So here you can see that the home page is at the center and there is no sign in sign up button because I have removed everything which I wrote over here. So Clerk actually provides some more functions. So it provides clerk loaded and the clerk loading. To avoid any flicker, I don't want to show anything on the page until and unless clerk properly loads, because before it actually complete loading, we cannot detect whether user is logged in or not. Otherwise, it's going to flicker that out. First of, if user is logged in, it's going to show login and sign up button for a millisecond, and then it's going to flicker out to show the logged in icon, the avatar for the user, or maybe the logout button. So I'm going to use these things. So for that, I'm simply going to first of all remove all of these 4 imports, and I want to load up this children if user is signed in and the clerk is properly loaded. Actually not signed in, I'm simply detecting if the clerk is properly loaded, then I'm going to trigger these out. All right, and if clerk is loading, then I want to show a loader. So we can design it in our own way. We can show any GIF image, but I'm simply going to show this text. Okay, so this is going to be the clerk loading. All right, so when clerk is loading, it's going to show loading. So let me refresh this page. You can see that it took 1 second to load the clerk. So it is actually important because in the child components, I will be loading up the navbar. I can load up the further checks whether user is logged in or not to process further things. Okay, so this check is very important, and it's good that if we write something and load an image for the GIF over here rather than simple text, it would look good. Okay, so now I'm going to create components folder, and inside this components folder I'm going to create a new file, navbar.tsx. okay, so RAFCE, so this is the navbar, and here I can actually load up few things, but before that let me set the layout for the navbar. So this is going to be, let me add the background colors. So let's set this out and rounded bottom axle. All right, so inside it I'm going to simply load the UL. So let's add the class name and flex justify between padding y4 padding x6. All right, and inside this I'm simply going to load another div, and this is going to take the link from the next link. This is, yes, and this is going to take us to the home page, and let's add li and then the home. All right, so let's see. First of all, I'm simply going to load this navbar over here which I've just created. All right, so let's refresh. And now you can see that it is showing this home page, and this is going to be visible in all the pages because this is what I have added in the layout.tsx file. And now I'm going to add login sign up button if user is not logged in, and if user is logged in, I'm going to show the avatar icon and maybe the profile link that is going to take us to the profile page. Otherwise I'm going to protect those routes. Okay, so for this layout, I think we don't need to do anything. So I'm simply going to close it, and let's come back to this file. Okay, so after this div, I'm also going to load another div, and this is going to be a client page which I want to protect from the client side using a middleware. Okay, I showed you in the demo in the start of this video. All right, so for this, I'm loading up this class name. So I'm going to add the items center. And now let's copy this link, paste it, and this is going to take us to the client. And let's add the client page. All right. So it's going to show over here because I have set the justify between over here. But if I start adding another div for the last stuff, like the logged in or the logout links. So first of all, I'm going to add the gap 6 items center, and inside it, I need to first of all add two links, sign in and the login, like this. Okay, and now you can see that it's showing login sign up, but it is going to be visible all the time. I've already set up Clerk, but here in this component, how can I detect whether user is logged in or not? If I go to the documentation over here, it is giving us this particular information, read user and session data. So there are multiple ways. If we are on the server side, maybe on the API or on the server component, we can use these two functions, auth and current user, to detect whether user is logged in or not and get the user information, its name, profile, and other details. If we are on the client side, then we can use these two functions. Use auth, it gives us is loaded, clerk is loaded, user ID and the session, and then we can also use this use user as well, whether user is signed in or not, and user information will be provided by that. So currently this nav bar, I have not written use client at the top, so this is a server component. So I'm going to be using this thing, auth and the current user, to get the information. Okay, so in this nav bar, I'm going to add the const user ID. This is going to be from auth, which is going to be coming from the Clerk Next.js/server. All right, so now I can use this user ID to add a check over here. If user ID exists, it means user is not logged in. So I'm going to add if not user ID question mark these parentheses, and I'm going to put all of these things over here. And after this, I'm going to add other parentheses, and I'm going to take a user to the profile links and also the user button, which I added at the start of the video in the layout file. So this is going to be coming from the Clerk Next.js. All right. So now if user is not logged in, then I'm going to show this login sign up. If user is logged in, then I'm going to take user to the profile page, which is not yet created. I have yet to create that. And also I'm going to show the user button that shows the drop down for the user settings and the logout button. All right, so let's go over here. Let's refresh. And let me click on the login. So I want to move it to the center of the page. So let me first of all move these things to the center. So first of all, let's go to the page, and I'm going to wrap this thing inside the div. All right. So this div is going to have this class name, flex, item center, justify center, and height full. And let's put this inside it. All right, and there is a built-in functions within these components. Let's say if user is logged out, then where I want to navigate to after user log out. Okay, sometimes user might want to directly hit this /sign-in URL on the page rather than clicking on this login button. So in that case, it automatically needs to detect whether user is logged out, then it should navigate to that route. So I'm going to add after sign out URL, and let's go to the home route. Okay, and let's copy this. Let's go over sign up. Let's paste it, and this is going to be the sign up. All right, so now both of these things should be at the center. Yes, you can see that these are on the center. So let's log in with the Google again. So it's loading, and now you can see that it has detected the profile and this user button for manage account, okay, and the logout. And we have this profile link. It is not yet created. We have yet to create the client page. So it means that this logic of detecting whether user is logged in or not is working perfectly fine. And again, when I refresh this page, you will see the loading and quickly showing this nav bar. If I don't add this loader, then it would have flickered out, because initially it is not able to detect whether user is logged in or not. Then it might have flickered out. First it would have shown login sign up button, and after a few milliseconds, it would have shown this profile page. So this thing is important. Clerk loading, and the clerk loaded, then show everything from the child component. All right, so let's now create the client page and the profile page, and then I will move further to protect our routes. So first of all, let me close these out. All right, and let's open up this layout. And one thing I want to show you, that if I go over here, you will see that it is white. Clerk actually provide the theming and some built-in properties that we can configure with. There are a lot of properties. You can check out the documentation, but let me quickly show you. If you want to enable the dark mode for all of its built-in components, like for this drop down, for the profile model, for these kinds of components. So for that, I'm simply going to come in the terminal, and I'm going to install Clerk themes. So npm I, and I need to write clerk / themes. All right, and once it is getting imported, I need to import two things from the clerk themes. It gives us a dark or something, yeah, only dark. So we can actually load the dark, or we can add nothing. If we add nothing, it will be shown in the light mode already, and if we add the dark, it will be shown in the dark mode. And let's add that. So in the clerk provider, we can add a property appearance. Within double curly braces, we can add a base theme, and we can put the dark. Now every built-in component of the clerk is going to be in the dark mode. Okay, and there are a lot of other properties that clerk provide that we can add in the clerk provider, as well as in other components like sign in, sign up. For the theming, you can check out the documentation for it. Just quickly show you, if I refresh this page, it should be in the dark mode, the login component. And yes, you can see that it is in the dark mode. Sign up is in the dark mode. And if I log in, it is going to show the profile page as well as the other components in the dark mode as well. All right, so now I'm going to add a profile page. So what clerk recommend is, first of all, we can add any name as we want, but inside it we need to create another folder, double square brackets dot, and we can put anything over here. I'm gonna go with the profile and close the double square brackets. It will not be included in the URL, but this is what the clerk recommends. And inside it, I'm simply going to add page.tsx. All right, so this is going to be a server component, and the reason I'm creating it a server component, because I want to show you that how we can protect our route from the component level as well, if it is a server component. And I'm going to protect my client route from the middleware file, because I'm going to convert that route into a client component. Okay, so RAFCE, this thing. All right, so this is going to be the profile, and inside it, I'm going to add h1, and this is going to show a username, and also this is going to show the user profile once user is logged in. Okay, so this is going to be coming from the clerk Next.js. All right, I would like to import few other things. So this is a server component. I can also add the same function which I was using in the nav bar for detecting if user is logged in or not. So I can add this thing, user ID from the auth. All right, and I can actually convert it into a boolean variable, is auth not user ID. Okay, and I can actually fetch the user information like the username, avatar, from, let's add await, and the current user from the clerk Next.js. And when we use await in Next.js, we have to convert it into this. So now auth redirect, I would also like to import redirect. This is going to be from the next navigation, all right. So now I'm going to first of all check if user is not authenticated, and then I'm going to redirect it to the home route from the server side. This is how I'm protecting this route. So this is not going to flicker the page because this is happening on the server side. So if user is not logged in, redirect it to the home page, and if user is logged in, obviously this is going to get rendered. Okay, so we have this user to actually show the user data. Okay, we can show the username. So for that I can add user dot and then username. This is how I can show it up. And let's add some class names as well, flex, item center, justify center, and we can add flex column. We can add margin top to 8. Let's increase the size of it as well. So text to Excel. Okay, so but one thing, I'm gonna go into the clerk, and this is showing one user being registered over here, which I'm using to log in with. I can go with the users, and these are all the users which are currently used in order to log into our application. I'm going to actually remove this, and I'm going to log in with it again, and I'm going to go into the configuration for email, username and my password, and I'm going to enable username. When I'm going to trying to log in with the new email ID, it's going to ask us or prompt us to write a username for that. Otherwise it is not going to show that up. All right, so now we can actually configure other things as well. If we try to sign up with our new email ID rather than social providers, it's going to send us some verification code which we need to add in the clerk in order to successfully log in. For verification purpose, we can enable SMS verification, email verification link, password keys, and all these configuration for the social connection as well. First of all, let's save this out. Social connections, we can enable or disable social connection. Currently it is showing the shared credentials because I need to add the client ID, secret ID from the Google developer account for the GitHub as well. I'm using shared credentials. If you want to configure that, you can click on this thing, use custom credentials. You can add client ID, secret ID from your GitHub or a Google account, or there are different ways for the other social providers as well. All right, we can enable Web3 login, multi-factor authentication can be enabled for SMS authenticator apps. We can restrict attack protection and all these things. All right, I'll come back to this. There are multiple other customization options that we can see. Now I'm going to go over here. Let's refresh this, and I'm going to log in with Google again. Now you can see that I deleted an email ID and log in with it again. Now since I enabled the username, now I need to add my username, anything I want. Okay, now I can go to the continue. All right, so now you can see that I'm logged in. It is showing profile, and it is showing this user button. This is in the dark mode as well. This is showing this thing as well. All right, profile. And let me go to the sign in. I cannot actually sign in or sign up once I'm already signed in. This is because I added these things after sign out URL where I need to navigate to. All right, so now let's click on the profile. I can actually navigate to this profile component from the clerk, actually showing the same thing which is being shown over here. And this is the server component. And now you can see that it is showing this username because I'm loading up from the current user. And this is how it's working. I'm actually protecting this route. Let me verify that by manually triggering the profile component. So let me sign out. And now if I manually trigger the profile page, I'm not able to navigate to that because I'm not logged in. On the server side, it is detecting if user is logged in or not, then I'm simply redirecting it using the redirect function provided by Next.js. Right. Next thing, I would like to create this client page. This is going to be a client component. The reason I'm creating it because I want to show you that if we have a client component, then how we can protect that as well, and how to fetch user information in the client component as well. Okay, and I might be using one of these things, maybe the use user. All right. So let's create a new folder. I'm going to name it client, and the folder name, again, let me explain you. This is something which I need to write over here. So this is referring to the folder name. Whatever we write in the folder name becomes the part of the URL. Okay. So let's create a new file, page.tsx, RAFCE, and this is going to be the client page. And let's convert it into use client. Okay, this is going to be a client side component. Now let's come over here and let's copy everything from here. Let's paste over here. Let's import this use user. And if user is not logged in, this is simply going to return null. And if user is logged in, then I'm going to print the internal details of the user. So I can put these things over here. Hide full flex column. These are simply Tailwind CSS classes. Hello user.first name. So this is going to show me the first name of a logged in user. So let's go over here. Let's click on the client page, and it is showing nothing. Because we are not logged in. I have not protected it yet. I will protect this client side component from my middleware file. Okay, so let me log in again with the Google. Now I'm logged in. Let's click on the client page, and now you can see that it is showing hello Umair. Umair name is coming from the logged in user because this is the name, first name from my account. All right. So now I'm going to talk about the middleware file which I've already created, middleware.ts. Let's go over here. Protect routes using Clerk middleware. Let's open this up. In the previous version, it was I think auth middleware, but it has converted into the Clerk middleware now. Okay, so this is something which we have already added. And create a route matcher, and this is the route matcher which we need to add. So let's come over here. Route matcher should be imported from the same package. Okay, so let me copy this from here. This thing, let's import this one as well. And here inside it, we need to write all the routes which we want to protect. First of all, I want to protect client component because other routes I've already protected with other methods. If we have more routes, we can put that, and we can add these statics as well if we want to protect all the child routes as well, rather than manually adding all the routes up to any nested level. Okay, and we have this Clerk middleware. So now I'm going to add auth and then the request arrow function, and here I'm going to check if is protected route, and then inside it I'm simply going to add this request. All right, and then I'm going to write auth.protect. Okay, so now this if is going to get true if any of these matcher is going to get true. It means that if user is not logged in, then it's going to match. If it is a client, then I'm going to protect it. Protect means that it will take us to the login page. It will not take us to that particular page which is the client at this time. All right, so let's go over here. I am logged in. I am on the client page. I can simply go to the client page, but if I simply sign out, let's refresh. I'm in the home page and I can click on the client page. So let's click on that. And now you can see that it has detected from middleware because I'm not logged in. It will not take me to the client page. It will simply take me to the login page that first you need to log in. Then you can actually access this client page. And there are a lot of other methods that this documentation gives us. This one. For example, this is the same thing which I have done for the client component, and we can add these different conditions with different permissions for the user, whatever the permission user has. These are some built-in functions that we can trigger. And all the different methods that it provides, it's quite useful, depends upon what is your requirement. All right, so we have this simple app for the authenticated user, loading up the user data. And also let's go to the login. And if I try to sign up with one of my email ID, let's go with that. Actually, let's cut this email ID and put this over here, and inside the password I can simply write capital ABCD 1234. So meets all the necessary requirements, and username is going to be the Umair Mirza. Okay, so let's continue with this. I'm actually signing up, creating with the new account. So this password have been found. So I can actually write ACD at 1357. Let's see if it works. Let me see. Let me copy this up for using it later on. Let's continue. And now you can see that it has sent me a verification code which I need to write. So let me add the verification code and let me save it as well. So the verification code is 2092 and 48. All right, so I've successfully added it, and now you can see that it is showing this avatar for my username, and I can go to the client page. And I have not actually updated my first name. Let me see if I can actually add the first name over here as well. So update profile, update username. Okay, all right, maybe I would be needing to add these things over here. Maybe user can actually set their first name and the last name. Yes, I had to enable this in order to set it for the user. Let me see. Let's go over here, manage account, username. Actually, it would have triggered me when I was actually signing up. The reason I'm actually signing up from the credentials, let me sign out and log in again. And let me add this thing, and I don't add any password. And let's click on the continue, and now you can see that if I don't enter a password or invalid password, then it's going to show me the forget password. Forget password is built in Clerk. Okay, I can click on forget password, I can click on the reset, and it might be sending us the code in our email ID which we can put over here, and after that we can actually add our new password over here. So let me quickly show you how we can protect our API routes of Next.js using Clerk session. So if user is logged in or user is not logged in, based upon that, I want to protect my API routes. So here I want to start off by writing an API. I hope that you have an understanding how we can create an API routes. I've already created multiple videos about the REST API creation in Next.js. Check out my playlist of Next.js 14 where you can learn everything about the REST API creation in Next.js. So inside it, let's create a new folder. So the route of this API will become like localhost colon 3000/API/data. And inside it, I want to create a new file, route.ts. We cannot change the name of the file. It is predefined in Next.js. All right. So first of all, I want to start off with writing const async function get, and this get name for this function is predefined in Next.js. We cannot change its name. It actually shows that what kind of a request it is. So it means that it is a get request, means it is going to return something. from it. Okay, so now just like the server component, we use the auth from the Clerk Auth. Similar to this API route, we can use the same user ID equals to auth from next Clerk Next.js server. Okay, and it is giving us some error, so I need to spell it correctly. Okay, and for getting the data of the user, we can use the same thing like current user. So await current user. So let import this one as well. Okay, now in order to protect this, first of all, let's not protect it. I'm going to return user ID and the username of the user. So let me add this line. This is the next response from the next server. And next response.json, here I'm returning the JSON data with status 200 with the message user is authenticated, and the data user ID, username. Okay, so now in order to hit this API, we can use the browser, as this is the get request. Get request can be tested on the browser. Okay, so API data, I'll hit enter. Now you can see that it is returning authenticated user ID null, and username does not exist as well because I'm not authenticated. Now I want to protect this with this one. Okay, so not authenticated and status is equals to 401. Now this should be printed because I'm not authenticated. Okay, now this is the complete API which I would like to test now. So let's go back and let's log in. So I want to log in with the credentials. I've already created an account. Now I'm logged in. Now let's hit API/data. Now you can see that it is showing the authenticated with the correct user ID and the username for that particular user. So we have seen this is how we can use the same auth function from the Clerk to actually return some response or process further things based upon if user ID exists or not. All right, so that's pretty much it. Now I want to show you how we can connect over Clerk created users and store those user details in our own database. And for that, I will be using MongoDB. You can use any other database as well, but the process is going to be same. Even if you are using some ORMs like Prisma ORM or the Drizzle ORM, the schema creation for the models or the queuing is going to be a little bit different, but overall the structure and the way I'm going to connect my Clerk with the MongoDB is going to be the same. So first of all, I would like to install few packages. In the terminal, I want to write npm i. First one is going to be the MongoDB. Then I'm going to use mongoose for queuing. And then I will be using Swix package. This is actually required to detect if user is created, updated from the Clerk. And then we can process out the storing the user data in our MongoDB. Okay, so I'll hit enter. This is going to be installed in package.json as well as in node_modules folder. Okay, so meanwhile it is getting installed. I'm gonna go and create my DB configuration. Okay, so here I'm going to create models folder, and inside the models folder I can actually create a new file, and this is going to be the user.modal.ts, and inside it I'm going to be creating a model for the user. Means in my own database what kind of information for the user I want to store. Okay, it can be similar to the Clerk or it can be some extended object than the Clerk. Okay, so I've already created multiple videos how we can create schemas in Mongoose, Node Express, MongoDB. Crash course is already on my channel, and there are multiple other videos as well. But still I would like to explain how the Mongoose schema works. So first of all, I would like to add schema from Mongoose, then I will be adding the model from Mongoose, then models. Okay, and then let's create a schema now. So user schema, new schema, and this is going to first of all take Clerk ID. This is the kind of structure which I'm trying to build. I want to store the Clerk ID in my MongoDB database as well for the reference, for if in case in future if we want to create a longer application with more models, with more relationships. So I think it is essential to store the reference of Clerk in our own DB for the user model. Okay, so this is going to be of type string. This is going to be required, and this is going to be unique as well. Means it cannot be duplicated. Okay, no two users should have a same Clerk ID. Okay, so now I'm going to add an email. This is going to be of type string required, and the email can be unique or not, but let's leave it like this. Okay, so now I'm going to add a username, and this is going to be of type string, and this is going to be this can be unique, or you can say this can be required. All right, so now just like these things, I would like to add few more properties quickly, just adding that to save our time. So this is going to be the photo of type string. This is going to be a photo URL from the Clerk, required first name and then the last name. All right, and the reason I've not added unique to the email, because we can have a login with same email ID enabled using the social providers, as well as login with credentials. Okay, so but we can later on come back, and based upon our requirement we can add a unique property to it. So now I'm going to const user. This is going to be the models dot user or models user schema. All right, so let's export this user now. Okay, so whenever our user is going to be stored in the mongoose database, these are the information that I will be storing in that. And along with the models, I will be also needing the db.ts file, and this is going to make sure that our connection to the Mongo Atlas database is successfully established, which I yet need to configure, by the way, creating a new database in Mongo Atlas. But before that, let me add a const. I will be creating the MongoDB. This is going to be the MongoDB URL from MongoDB URL. All right, exclamation mark shows that this is not going to be undefined. This is always going to be available. All right, so interface mongoose connection, and let's add the connection mongoose or null, and let's add the promise as well. So promise mongoose, and then the null. I will be needing to import this as well, so let's import it from mongoose, and let's add mongoose for the type. This is something which I'm configuring so that in Next.js, when the connection is already established and we have multiple requests that needs to be made, I want to fetch the cached version of the mongoose connection. I don't want to establish a MongoDB connection again and again when there is a new request from my front-end Next.js application. Okay, so now let's maintain the cached mongoose connection, and this is going to be equals to, let's add cached, and this is going to be equals to global as any dot mongoose. Okay, now let's check if we don't have a cached version of it. Then I'm going to add the cached equals to global as any dot mongoose, and this is going to give us an object with the connection null, promise null, and something like this. All right, so if there is a connection variant, then I'm going to return the cached variant. If the cache does not exist, then I'm going to create a new cache with the same details. Now I'm going to export const a connect function async like this. If cached.connection exists, then return the cached. Okay, otherwise I'm going to create a promise. So cached dot promise equals to cached dot promise, or I'm going to add mongoose dot connect with the mongo URL which I've already imported above. Okay, let's select whatever is suggesting me the extension which I'm using. So it is suggesting me all of these things. Let's remove all of these, and first of all I will be adding the DB name, so Clerk Auth v5, and then I will be adding the buffer commands equals to false, and then connection timeout ms is going to be, let's say, if it keep on trying if the connection is established or not, I'm going to set it to 30 seconds actually. Okay, so once that is done, let's add cache.connection. You don't need to learn everything, you can just copy whatever I'm writing. But it's good if you try to understand what is happening over here. Overall idea is that I don't want to create established connection with the DB again and again on every request which I am triggering from my front end Next.js application. Okay, so now return cached connection. Okay, so now whenever I need to query to the database, I need to import this connect function, and this connect function is this is a function which I need to write it like this in wherever I need to use. Okay, and once connection is established, then I will be using the DB for that, and DB is going to give me the query access to all the operations which I need to perform, like create user, delete user, update user, and all these things operations. Okay, so before I move further, let me open up the Mongo Atlas, and you need to first create your account in it, and then once I'm done with creating an account, then I'll be creating a new DB over here. So once you successfully sign up on the cloud.mongodb.com, first of all, you will need to create an organization. I've already created 2 organizations. One is the Next.js project, which I'm going to select, and inside it, these are some projects which I have already created. By the way, I've already created videos on the Auth.js version 5. You can check that out on my channel. So let's click on the new project, and here I would like to give it a name. So Clerk Auth v5 Next.js. Okay, I don't need to select anything from here, so let's click on the continue, and I don't want to invite any member as of now. I'm a project owner, so let's click on create the project. So it's going to take some time. Once it gets created, I will need to create a cluster. Okay, so create a cluster, so let's click on the create. So I will go with the free shared CPU, which is fine because we are just testing and learning. You can change the name, but I'm gonna go with this. Let's click on the AWS. Let's select the nearest region. Let's click on the create deployment. So this is going to deploy my cluster. After that, it is going to give me the URL. So this is the username and this is the password which I can actually copy, and click on the create user. You can change the username and password if you want. Now click on the choose a method. Let's click on the driver. This is the package which we have already installed, and this is the whole URL which I need to copy from here. Okay, so let's copy. Let's go into the env file and let's paste it over here. Okay, and this has to be MongoDB URL which we have already defined, this one. Okay, so like this. All right, and I don't think we need to modify anything over here. So yeah, so cluster 0, majority, rewrites. We don't need to write the DB name over here because we have already given the DB name when the connection is being established. DB name over here, Clerk Auth v5. All right, so let's close it. Let's close it. This is the model. All right, so let's click on done. So let's close this model now. Now let's come to the clerk, and inside the clerk, since we are already looking at this dashboard, let's see what we have here. We can actually go to the customization. We can change the avatar. We can change the default color. For our application, we can change the templates which are being sent to our email ID when we send an email for verifying our email, send the magic link and all these things. You can go through it. Okay, we can add an integration with the Firebase JWT template. We can go to the settings and we can disable the clerk, the branding, which is being shown over here, like secured by clerk, which I need to refresh. As of now my app is not running, so everywhere where you see the secured by clerk will be removed. But in the production, if you want to remove this, you will have to have a paid version of the clerk. This is only in the development, that's why it will be removed from our development right here. So now one thing I want to go over here is the webhook. Webhook is a way to actually connect our clerk users with our own database. If you don't know what is webhook, webhook is actually triggers an API. API needs to be existing on a deployed instance on a public URL of our application, and that API should be responsible of fetching the data of the clerk user, logged in user, which is being created, and store those user information in our own database. It can be any database, MongoDB, SQL, through Prisma ORM, Drizzle ORM, or any other way. Okay, so it is showing me this endpoint. Okay, I cannot add an endpoint over here for the local host because it will not work on the local host. So I need to deploy my application and to Vercel because it's free. I will show you by the end that what are the other ways you can choose to test this webhook even when you are running locally. Okay, that is slower, but it works out. But the good way is to have a staging URL where you can test out these webhooks. Okay, webhooks are the URLs of the APIs which we need to create, and then it is going to get triggered whenever user is being created. Okay, so first of all, let's go to the Clerk docs, and I'm gonna go to the integration part. So sync clerk data to your own application with webhooks. This is what the clerk recommends us. And the first method is showing the setup ngrok. If we don't want to deploy it, then we can set up ngrok, which I'm going to show you by the end of this video. This is a slower, but we can test the webhook using it. But let's go with the deployed version of the URL for our application. So below this, what we can do is we have to add the webhook secret, which I yet need to create. It will be get from when I will add a URL. And when this webhook needs to be triggered, I need to select from here. I want it to be triggered whenever new user is going to get created. I can trigger any other webhook by selecting any other action or an event that clerk provide us. Organization can be created, some membership, user gets deleted or updated, but I only want to trigger an API whenever user is created in Clerk. Okay, so let's add an API. So inside this, I'm going to create a new folder. So this is going to be the webhooks, and inside it, I'm going to, let's add another folder. This is going to be the Clerk. So inside this Clerk, I'm going to add route.ts. I think this is going to work because API routes needs to have this particular file route.ts. Now the URL for this particular API is going to be the localhost colon 3000 slash API slash webhooks slash Clerk. Okay, so now inside it, I'll come back to this. I'm going to add localhost colon 3000. I'm going to update that later on because localhost is not going to work. So this is the URL for this API. Whenever user is going to get created in Clerk, this API is going to get triggered. And in this particular file, I'm going to fetch the user data from Clerk and store it in my own database, which is the MongoDB. Okay. So I will update to this, but first of all, let's go over here. And this is the package which I have already installed, Swix. And this is the file which I need to copy everything which is included in this particular file. Okay. So let's go over here. Let's paste everything. Okay. This is the webhook which is coming from Swix, which we have already installed. Webhook secret, which we need to create in the env. So let's add it over here, and the value, I will come back to this shortly. Let's go down, and this is the event type, and this is where I can detect whether user was created, whether user was updated, and what happened, why this webhook is getting triggered. So here I can add a check if event type, and this is going to be the user dot created. Now this if is going to get true if user was created, and inside it I can fetch the data of the user from the clerk. And for fetching the data, I can use this evt.data. You can see that it is giving us this ID, and similar to this we can fetch the other details. So let's fetch from, actually not from, equals to evt.data. So it gives us ID, email addresses, image URL. We can have a first name, we can have a last name, we can have a username. Okay, for now these are the information that I will need, because this is the information which I need to store in my mongoose model. You can see that the same information I've created over here. I can have more information from clerk if I want, but for now let's keep it like this. All right, so now let's construct a user object equals to this, and this is going to be a clerk ID, because clerk ID is the name of the property which I've created over here. Okay, so let's add an email ID like this, email addresses .0 dot email address. Okay, the email, yes, this is the email. We have username, photo, first name, and the last name. So let's add a username. This is going to be from the username. This is actually existing. And then we have the photo, which is the image URL, photo. And then we have first name, last name, and that's it. Okay, so once this is going to get generated, I can simply debug that as well if I want. And here I can actually pass this user information to a server action, maybe or directly over here to store the data in the mongodb. Okay, so let's create a new folder, actions, and inside this action I'm going to create user.action.ts. so this is going to be using use server, because this is the server action. Let's import user model from models, and let's import connect as well from the db file which we have created. So connect, this is going to be from db, yes, this one, connect. All right, so this is going to be from @/db. All right, and now let's create a function, export async function, create user. This is going to take a user. Let's give it any type for now, because this is simply TypeScript. You can create an interface if you want for the same types. And now let's add the try catch block in case there isn't any error. Okay, so inside the try block I can simply connect to the database, await connection, and then I can have this await user.create user with a new user, and now I'm going to return JSON dot parse json.stringify new user. So this is the server action which I've created. This is going to be responsible for storing the clerk user data in our own database using this connect function, this user model which we have already created. Okay, before creating the user, we first need to connect to the database. All right, so let's come over here, and I can actually add const new user equals to await create user. Create user should be coming from actions which we have just created. All right, so now if new user exists, new user successfully created, we can update the metadata of the clerk as well. So storing the data of clerk in the mongodb, plus we can store the mongodb data in the clerk metadata as well. For example, the new user id, mongodb user will have its own id, clerk have its own id. We want to have a maybe store the id of the user in both ways, then we can do that as well. Clerk always have some metadata in it. Let me quickly show you. If I go over so let's create this one, invalid url. So I can actually add https colon. So I hope that this is going to be fine. Yes, it looks fine. Maybe http, click on create. Maybe it is not supporting the local host in any way, even if we are not testing this out. So in the users we have the metadata. I'll come back to this once I will be having this proper url. So let me add a url abcd .com. Yes, configure endpoint. Let's create that. Now it is getting created. Okay, I can actually can I edit this url? Yes, I can edit that. I'll come back to this, but for now let's reveal this signing secret, copy it and paste it over here like this. Okay, now I wanted to show you this user's information. Let's click on that, and if I go down, this is the metadata. I can click on added, and this is the example metadata which is already added, and this is where I can store any metadata. So whenever we try to fetch the user using use user hook, which we have already doing in our client components, then this information is going to be available in this user object as well, the metadata information. All right, so here if new user, I can write await clerk client dot users dot update user metadata id, and then the public metadata, and this is going to be, I can name anything, so user id new user dot underscore id. All right, so once that is done, finally after this if, I can simply return a response, and this is, can be coming from the next server. Return response message new user created user equals to new user. All right, this is not required because this is the webhook which is being triggered by the clerk. If we try to use this API in our own application, then we might need to have some data returned from it. Okay, but this is something which I've just added. Okay, I hope there won't be any error. The reason I've written all this code because I need to deploy the application, and all this code should be existing over here because I will be testing my webhook on a deployed URL with all this configuration user creation exists, okay, in the code which is deployed, including the user actions and all these things. All right, so make sure you have all these things configured if you are practicing along with me. All right, so I think that is done. Let's go over. So over here, first of all, database have been created. I'm gonna go into the network access, and I wanna make this database public. Okay, so allow access from anywhere. Click on the confirm. All right, so this database is going to be accessible from anywhere, whether it's going to be accessed from clerk, from any other API, IP address that is accessing this database. Okay, so it's currently pending, it's taking some time. I hope that it's going to be active. Yes, it is active. Now let's go to the database, and click on the browse collection. Currently it will not have anything because I've not created any user at this moment. Let's go to the GitHub now. github.com. I want to start off with creating a new repository. So let's add Clerk Auth v5 Next.js. All right, let's keep it public. Let's click on create a repository. Okay, first of all, let's come over here, git ignore, and I would like to add .env file over here. I don't want to push this env to my GitHub repository. Okay, so let's clear this out. Git status yes, so we don't have env file exists currently. So let's add this commit. So let's add git add all, git commit this, and let's copy everything, all these 3 lines for setting up the origin, pushing into the main branch. Hit enter. So this is going to push my project to this repository. All right, so this has been added over here. Now let's go to the Vercel and let's click on all the projects we can have our new project. A new repository should be visible over here. Let's click on import. Okay, so its name, one thing which we want to do is to copy all of the env variables from here to here. All right, so all of these are added. Make sure there is no mistake, and now I can click on the deploying. So it's going to take some time before it gets a complete deployment. Once it is deployed, I'm going to use the deployed URL to log in with the Clerk with new user. Okay. And also once I have the deployed URL, I need to update this webhook. Go over here. And I need to replace this abcd.com with actual URL, okay? Because my API is going to be existing on the deployed URL, not the local host. So let's wait for it. All right, so it is showing congratulations. It is not loading the initial view for my homepage, but that is fine. Let's click on continue to dashboard. Okay, so this is the URL, the second one, not the first one. So I'm going to open this up. Click on the second URL and it should show me the loading. Yes, so yeah, it was showing the proper loading because this was a part of my web page. So this is the URL which I need to copy, and let's go to the Clerk. Let's click on this URL. Let's click on added, and I'm going to add this URL. Make sure you don't add the 2 slashes after this. And now it should trigger the API which I have written. So let's click on save. Okay. I hope this signing secret is not changed. Let's verify that. So we have IFSRA and I think it's not changed. Now let's go over here. Let me quickly verify by logging with Google using this deployed URL first of all. But let me go over here, click on the user. I'm going to delete both of these users from here. All right, so these are deleted now, and let's click on the Google. Select the Google email ID. Click on continue. Now I need to add my username. Click on continue. Now you can see that I'm successfully logged in, and I can see my profile. This is the username. I can go to the client page and this is the first name. And now it's time to go and check our MongoDB. So let's refresh this and it should show the user. And yes, you can see that it is showing this Clerk Auth v5, which is the name of the database which I set over here. And this is the Clerk ID. This is the ID being fetched from the Clerk, and all this information are also being fetched from Clerk, which is being updated in my MongoDB. And one thing more I would like to test is go to the users, click on this username which is being added, and I can click on add it, and now you can see that my metadata in Clerk for that particular user is also getting updated, and this user ID is belonging to the MongoDB user ID, this one, the object ID. So both of these information are stored in both of these platforms. It means that our webhook and the logic which we have written is working pretty fine. One last thing I would like to talk about is its suggestion to use ngrok. Let me show you what it does. So it actually converts your local URL into a public address. So as long as your local host is running, you can create a new public URL against that local host and share that public URL to anyone around the world. As long as it's running locally on your system, it will keep on working anywhere in the world using that public URL. So if I go to the ngrok, we can actually sign up to ngrok, and then it is going to give us some ID, and we can actually install ngrok in our system using brew. I am using Mac, so I used the home brew to install ngrok in my system. Okay, so let me show you how it works. So ngrok hyphen version. So this is the version I have currently installed in my system. You can install it, and let's go to the docs. Here I'm gonna go with the get started with ngrok. So I use this command in my Mac to actually run it and install ngrok in my system. You can click on the Windows, you can use this to install Linux and Mac. So once it gets installed, we need to actually run this command and give the token which you can get after you sign up with your account. You will have this token on the dashboard page of your account. Once you will install this token, you can run these commands to actually convert your localhost URL into the public address. For example, my app is currently running on localhost 3000, this one, and I want to create a public URL against it. So in the terminal, I can write ngrok http, and I don't need to write the whole URL. I can simply write the port directly. I'll hit enter. So now it is going to give me this URL, forwarding URL. So let me copy this URL, and I can give this URL to anyone. Make sure you keep your local host as well as this ngrok running in order this public URL to keep on working. Okay, so I can go and click on the visit site. All right, it's a little bit slower, but it can work out sometimes if you want to share your changes with someone else who is remotely working with you on a project. So you can see that the same application is running on this URL. This is a public ngrok URL, and I can copy this URL and create a webhook in my Clerk in order to test if the user is getting created in MongoDB or not. I can keep the previous webhook, and I can add a new webhook over here, /API/webhooks/Clerk, and it should work just like the deployed URL if you want. So we can select if user is created, then this API should be triggered. So every time you run the local host, you have to create this URL, and you will have to test that out. If the URL gets changed for the ngrok, you will have to update the URL over here as well. But for short term, it is a good way to test your changes or share your changes with someone. All right, thank you so much for watching, guys. Let me know in the comments below what next you want me to create in Next.js. So many people requested me to create a video on the newer version of Clerk Auth, which I have created, and I have covered up pretty much everything which are essential for integrating the successful authentication and authorization system in your application. If you need any development services, do contact me on LinkedIn. For any development services you want from me, check the link of my LinkedIn profile in the description of this video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. See you in the next video.